All right. Hello. For real this time. Thank you, everyone, for all of your amazing patience with all of our technical issues right now. We had intended to have Mary and I broadcasting together separately, with having her and I joining in virtually together. And clearly it didn't work very well, and we've spent the last hour struggling with it, and I really apologize that happened. So rather than continuing to fuss with it anymore, I'm just going to forge ahead. Mary is going to type her contributions in on the side chat, and I apologize that it has to be this way, and we're going to do our very best to have it a little bit more streamlined for next week because we're really excited about this. I think this is a really great way for us to get to be able to be more interactive with folks as we're all staying in our homes and being safe. And we want everyone, we want all of you beautiful people to stay as safe as possible, so we can get all through all this together and raise our babies in this wonderful community. So, hello, I'm Elizabeth. I'm supposed to be here with Mary, and she is not here. We also have one other incredible peer breastfeeding peer counselor, Siobhan, and we are the Open Arms Breastfeeding Peer Counseling team. And I really wish we could be here together right now to do this. That had been the plan. So I'm going to be doing this one by myself, and then in the future, hopefully, we'll be able to be all together, or maybe we'll do a rotation or something. Um, so, so yeah, hi. Feel free to add any questions into the chat. Make comments if you have any thoughts or questions or anything as I'm going through, and then we'll go from there. So Mary and Binta is one of our partners. She works with Emmy over at Journey Midwife Services. So Binta and Mary had had a fantastic conversation about, just all of the stuff that swirls around breastfeeding that we get up in our heads about, and leading up to breastfeeding, thinking, how am I going to do this? And there's been lots of different, everyone hears different things from their families, from society, from the media, all of the different things. So right now, if there is anyone watching, after all of the shenanigans we've been through. Um, so if there's anyone watching right now, I would love to hear, and you can keep adding it through, um, anytime during this, but I would love to hear what you folks have heard or what you feel about when you think about breastfeeding. What is, what are, what have you internalized? What are your thoughts? I talked with someone the other day, and it was it was pretty cool because she was asking me about how to get started. She was pregnant, and she was like, "Well, I'm going to be breastfeeding. That's non-negotiable." And that was a cool conversation to me because I feel like so often what we hear a lot of is, "Well, I'm going to breastfeed if I can." And I totally recognize that there's a small subset of folks who have complications and things that, you know, that do physically hinder breastfeeding. But for the most part, here's the thing: we don't wake up in the morning and say, I think I'll breathe today if my lungs work. I think I'll, continue existing if my heart keeps working. I'm going to eat this food and hope my pancreas is still working. And absolutely, there are times when those things stop working. I'm not negating that. But the thing is, we can't go around always thinking that maybe at some point our body's going to stop working. So when we're pregnant, if breastfeeding is important to you, the first thing is starting with that mindset. I'm going to do this. And you know what? If there are challenges, there is so much help out there. And we can definitely work through those challenges. But when we start out with the mindset that it's not going to work, we've already put a roadblock in front of ourselves. So the first step to having a fulfilling breastfeeding relationship is just saying, you know what? I'm going to do this. This is my plan. And of course, plans can always change. Roadblocks can come up. These things can happen. But we're never going to get there if we aren't even taking the first step. So, and then one of the things that Mary had brought up that I love was so fantastic. You guys, you need to, I can't wait for Mary to be able to be here to share these things. So, one of the most brilliant things um, when she and I were talking was she was talking about having a touchstone. And it's your why. Why do you want to breastfeed? What's what is the goal? What are you trying to reach? And that looks different for everyone because here's the thing: is breastfeeding is not black or white. It's not lose or win. There's no succeed or fail. It's a journey. It's not black and white. It's not linear. And everyone can have different goals. My goals may be different from someone else's goals. My reasons, my why may be different from other people's. And, when we're thinking about that and we're trying to think of what it is, what is our why? What keeps us going? It's really important to have that why rooted in a goal, in something that we want out of it versus a fear or um, or out of a something less positive. So the difference between saying I'm going to be breastfeeding because it's the way I connect to my ancestors and my heritage, or I'm going to be breastfeeding because I want to I want to have that time of physical connection with my baby. I'm going to be breastfeeding because, um, I really want to be offering this first food to my baby from myself. And when we frame it in that way versus just this is good, other alternatives are bad, it helps us kind of focus on what that journey is for us. And also, again, if we do hit any challenges, it's not about success or failure. Then we figure out how do we continue to meet those goals, that why that we set in the beginning, while dealing with the current challenges. So I thought that was really, really amazing. Um, so I'm doing this from my computer, and seeing, I'm not seeing if I have viewers. I'm not getting any comments, which is totally fine. But if you are watching, um, if I'm actually live, seeing comments would be fantastic. So that would be super cool um, if you're able to do that. So so yeah, definitely add comments if you're having any thoughts. Okay. So I'm going to move on to um, the good news. So here's the great thing is that just like we talked about, our hearts, our lungs, our pancreas, sure, there are times and people who have these things that are not working. But for most of us, just like our heart, our lungs, our pancreas, our various different body systems, most of us who are growing a baby are going to be able to nurse that baby if that is what we want. And so I think really focusing on that as we're getting set up is very, very important. That, we can trust this. This is going to happen. And again, if you're hitting roadblocks, then there's many, many places and many, many people that we can check in with to help finesse that. So things that you can check during pregnancy to make sure, because I get a lot of times folks are like, well, how do I know? How do I know it's going to work? So I imagine that you've been feeling some breast tenderness, some breast growth. All of those are signs that all of your milk glands are starting to figure out what to do. Things are kicking into high gear, so that breast swelling, that breast tenderness, you may see additional veining in your breast. So all of a sudden, for the most part, as we're going about our business, we likely have never noticed veins on our breast, and then you may start seeing these like dark blue veins. And what that is additional oxygen is being diverted to your breast to help grow all of that new tissue and start really activating um, all of your whole milk ducts and glands and everything that to kick in and really work. So that's the first thing you're going to notice. And then in the third trimester, usually, um, so some folks will experience some colostrum. Some may be able to express some colostrum by hand. Some people leak a little bit. This is one of those things where there's a huge variation of range of normal. It's normal to not leak. It's normal to leak. Everything in between is totally fine, and none of these things have any indication as to that whether you won't be able to. So if you're not leaking, it doesn't mean you're not going to make colostrum. It just means you haven't yet. But if you're leaking colostrum or if you're hand expressing colostrum, that is a brilliant sign that things are already happening. So if you're experiencing that, that's a huge one. You're like, hello, milk is coming, hooray! But again, if it's not happening, that doesn't mean that it's not working. Um, so, oh, okay, just making sure I'm not missing any comments or anything. Um, okay, I was just making sure it was still working. So yeah, all of those are great signs. Uh, and then when baby comes, then the next thing to do is just start putting that baby to breast as frequently as possible and really letting your body know the baby's here and it's time to do this thing. So one of the things that I think is one of the hardest parts of breastfeeding in America right now is that I feel like there's a lot of pressure in the world, in particularly in mainstream America at this point, but not a ton of real support. And one of the things we know about breastfeeding is that family and social support is one of the defining characteristics of helping people actually meet their own breastfeeding goals. So when we don't have that support, that's another one of those things that we're just working uphill against. So it's really important to take a moment and think about what are your support, your support networks. Who is out there? Who in your family has nursed a baby? Who in your friends? Have you seen a baby nursing? What did that look like? And who are some folks that you can go touch base with if you're having any questions? Um, so this program, the Open Arms Breastfeeding Peer Counseling Program, is really designed to help um, start to balance out some of the inequities in access to care for breastfeeding for certain focus communities that we discovered that there was, we know that there's huge inequities. So particularly for our focus communities, we are um, really trying to reach out and support our Black African families, Pacific Islander families, and Native American, Alaskan, Indian, Indigenous focus communities. That's mine. Woo! So what we recognize is that in our focus communities, in our traditions, in our cultures, before colonization, before all of this, um, you know, before white supremacy got involved, our cultures had rich, vibrant breastfeeding cultures, breastfeeding support. We had aunties, we had mothers, we had, traditions that would we would help each other. And so, part of breastfeeding now today in America is also about reclamation. It's about us healing some of that was done to our families and to our you know to our people. So that's something that when we're talking about our support, we may in our family we may not have had family members who had the support to nurse their babies. They may have had to they may have been working against a lot of social stigma because that was something that happened to our people a lot. Um, so seeking out that support, and then becoming that support is huge so that we're able to reclaim that sovereignty, reclaim those first foods that we give our babies. And so talking about what are what are we seeing in our families, what are we seeing in the media, and then how can we kind of debunk some of those things that may be myths. So again, if you're watching and you want to post some questions, we'd love to answer them. um, One of the most common myths I think that I hear is when when we hear that our family members didn't breastfeed, and we assume that first of all it was that person's body wasn't working and that they have passed that on to us. So again, particularly in our focus communities, in families who have been affected by colonization, um, we have seen a lot of intentional disruption in bonding between our birthing people and our babies. And so that's one of those things for us to reclaim and to recognize that maybe our parents didn't nurse us, maybe our grandparents didn't nurse our parents because they weren't allowed to, because those tools were taken from them. So whether it was because, we had epigenetic trauma, so trauma that has been done through history to our families, or whether it was more immediate, like someone, disrupting families at birth, whether it was, through CPS, or it was through foster care, or it was through residential schools. Many of our families have been disrupted by colonialism, and that has interrupted our breastfeeding. So now here we are, and we're reclaiming that, which is incredible. So, anyways, um, the other thing is that it's often, usually when we have a challenge, it's not the nursing person who's actually the root of the problem. It's really important that we recognize the root of the problem is usually either an external factor like stress and not getting enough time to be latching the baby in a really supported, comfortable environment to have all of that oxytocin and that prolactin really just seep in, all the lovey-dovey stuff happening. So if that's happening, we're not going to have our milk supply come in a full and copious way. Well, some people will. Some people are amazing milk producers regardless, but some of us struggle if we're in a really high stress environment. Also, a lot of folks who are struggling, it's the baby's fault. It's not your fault. Particularly moms tend to self-internalize a lot of things. If we feel like we are failing, um, we're going to take that guilt. We're going to assume that as I'm doing something wrong or I am broken, I am the problem. The reality is, most of the time, if there is a functionality issue, it's the baby. If the baby's not latching fully and deeply and really pulling the milk out of the breast, our body is going to misunderstand the signals. And our body is going to think, oh, that baby's getting plenty of milk because it didn't empty my breast. So I'm going to make less milk. And so then we run into the cycle where we're making less and less milk, but our body is just doing what it's supposed to. It's getting a signal. The signal says make less milk. You make less milk. So we want to focus on is helping that baby be really, really effective. There's lots of different things. So that baby might just be ineffective because, hi baby, if baby is not getting a good latch, whoop, if baby's latching on the tip of the nipple, let's see, she's like kind of the same color as me, so it's hard to see if she's in front of me. So if she's just latching on the nipple instead of deep onto the breast tissue, then she's not going to draw out a lot of milk, and your body's not going to get that signal. So first things first, the most important thing is to make sure that we're always getting a good deep latch. So we always want to make sure that baby's whole mouth is getting lots of breast tissue in there, and that she's getting a nice full latch. You can tell she's getting a great latch because it's not going to be painful. And that's one of those myths that we hear all the time, right? Oh, breastfeeding's so painful. You got to just white knuckle through it. Here's the thing. If you ever find yourself white knuckling or toe curling or screaming in pain, afraid to feed your baby, it's not right. And all that is, that's a signal. That's your body telling you, we need to get in there, we need to fix it. because if it hurts, that means that that baby is just chomping on your nipple instead of getting all that good breast tissue and squeezing all that milk out. And so we don't want to be disregarding any pain symptoms because what that's telling us is that baby's not getting that milk effectively. And if baby's not getting the milk effectively, then you're going to see your milk supply diminish. So that pain is actually really important communication, saying, "Hey, let's get some help here." And when we get that right, it's not going to hurt. Um, so the myth that breastfeeding is painful is really damaging in a lot of ways. First of all, it scares us, right? Because who wants to do something that's going to just be endlessly painful forever? That sounds terrible. Don't do that. You should never just be dealing with being in pain over and over and over again. We want to help you get a really good latch. And when you have that really good latch, it's going to be more effective and it's not going to be painful. In the beginning, the first couple days, you know, a little bit of like a rubbing sensation, a little bit of sensitivity. Sometimes it can be likened to like a sunburn style discomfort. That can be, sometimes that's it's within the range of normal. It's typical experience. Um, and even that doesn't happen to everyone. There's definitely people who nurse a baby, nurse a million babies, and never have any pain. That's totally possible. It's also possible to have a little bit of that, you know, discomfort level feeling of like the rubbing. It's just a new sensation. Your nipples have not been used like that probably ever. So um, it can take a little bit of time to adjust. But the myth that breastfeeding is always painful, even at the beginning, is a myth. Don't put up with pain like that. You don't need to. And there's people who can help. And if you're not getting help that's effective, find someone else. And that includes me. If I'm not helping you enough, go find someone else because you deserve to nurse your baby without fear or pain. Absolutely. And it's um, that's real. That's the reality is that you deserve to nurse your baby and be comfortable. And that is that's how it should be. So the idea that folks are accepting pain as an inevitability of breastfeeding right there sets us off to trauma and struggles. So, and for me personally, that was a huge factor in my challenges breastfeeding my first. So, with my first, my very well meaning friends who are all lovely people, and they were really, they were helping. They were sharing their experiences. So, I heard from the world breastfeeding really hurts. Just do it. Okay. Um, there was no caveats to that. So I didn't know that what I was experiencing was not in the realm of normal. And it took actually being with our daughter's cardiologist as I was like hunching over ooh, like that when she was 3 weeks old for someone to say, "Is that okay? Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh, it's fine. Oh, this is just how we do it." And it turned out she had a lip and tongue tie, and we got that taken care of. And once she had those revisions done, she had some craniosacral therapy to help her body relax after having been all restricted and scrunched. Once she got that taken care of, we were able to nurse, and it was a whole different baby. It was a whole different ball game. I was like, what the heck? If I had known that I didn't have to accept toe curling pain, I could have sought help earlier. So yeah, some people will have these challenges, but there are solutions. And I think that that's the most empowering thing is that it doesn't have to be like, oh man, if this is hard or it's painful, I guess it's just not for us. Um, if it's something that you want to be supported through and you want to find a way through it, we can do that. There's people and there is support for that. Also, knowing that there's no such thing as failure in breastfeeding. If you're feeding your baby, you're succeeding, you're winning, you're doing the best. Um, Combo feeding is not failing. Giving your baby colostrum and then choosing to switch to donor milk or formula, that's not failing. That's making a decision that works for you. So anywhere along the way, you can evaluate what your goal is and how it's working out for you. And know that if you come to us, we're not looking at you with any judgment or anything. We just want to help you meet your own goals and to support you on your journey. And these journeys are all different. So breastfeeding is not linear. It's not like, okay, so you get the baby on, you do this, boom, the end, and, easy peasy. Sometimes there's hiccups, and then you find your way through it. And maybe it looks different than you thought it would. Maybe so with my first daughter, I was really dead set on exclusive breastfeeding. And I went back to work really fast. And so I just had this image of, like pumping out all these bottles, and she was going to take bottles while I was at work, and she was going to do that super easy. And then I was going to have all this milk, and we were going to nurse, and everything was easy peasy. It didn't work out that way. So with her, it took us 3 months to take care of her tongue and lip tie. So my milk supply had dipped. Um, and we had a lot of struggles. We'd had a lot of pain. We had a lot of stuff going on. And so we supplemented with donor milk and with formula. We used a supplemental nursing system. We used bottles. We used cups. We did, all the things. And it was a beautiful journey. And I would just say that recognizing that it doesn't have to be all or nothing can actually really save our breastfeeding relationships, if that's what our goal is. Because a lot of times, we get so wrapped up in all or nothing. I remember the first time I went to go buy formula. It was hard. I cried. I was really sad. I felt like I was failing. I wasn't failing. I was doing exactly what I needed to do for my baby, and it didn't ruin my breastfeeding relationship. Um, but she needed food, so we gave it to her, and then we figured out breastfeeding, and that was our journey. And then with my son, I had a lot more tools. So he popped out. I realized that, oh, this baby has a tongue and lip tie too. We had craniosacral therapy at our house within 12 hours. We had him get his tongue and lip tie revised before he was a week old. We nursed 2 years until he decided that he was done, and that was that. We really didn't have a ton of problems. Um, that journey is no more of a success than my first one. The success is simply in finding that relationship that you want with your baby. That's your success. Your success is that you're feeding your baby. Your success is that you're reconnecting with your ancestors. You're reclaiming your sovereignty. You're taking care of your baby, and you're doing a fantastic job. That's what it's about. Not about, you know, some outside idea of failure or success. And so that really, I think that brings us to the idea of reframing all of this. Is maybe you're in a tough moment and you're struggling with how that feels. You're having a hard time right now, but you're going to get through it. And you're going to, tomorrow is a different day. And you can always make choices along the way. If this is not working, let's try this. If this is not working, let's try this. It's kind of, it's just like all the parts of parenting. You know, we get these babies and they are tiny humans with their whole lives already kind of packed into them. They have different opinions, they have things they like, they have ways that their bodies move, they have their own challenges, they have their own stuff. And so we're figuring it out together. And yeah, and so we get used to bobbing and weaving, rolling with the punches. What is this baby gonna? What are they up to today? And just taking it as it comes. So yeah, I think that kind of covered a lot of the things that Mary and I wanted to talk about. I feel like maybe this didn't. I don't know. I don't know if this actually worked. So we'll see. Please, even if you don't watch this live, if you didn't watch this live, feel free to add your comments. Mary and I will come back and we'll add comments. We'll see if we can figure out how to, um, maybe do this more successfully next time. Hopefully, where we can do a split screen and we can talk together, so you don't have to just listen to me, but you'll get to know us. You'll get to know me, Mary, Siobhan. We're the Open Arms Breastfeeding Peer Counseling team, and we're super excited to start to work with you all. We have a home visiting program as well as lactation lounges. So our home visiting program is designed for our focus communities, like I was telling you about earlier. So it's a year-long program. We'll meet with you prenatally and start setting you up for success. All of these things we'll talk about, and then we help you when you meet your baby. We'll be there within 24 hours, and a couple other visits early on, and then they start to space out. And so those are for our Black African birthing community, our Pacific Islander birthing community, and our Native American, Indigenous, Alaskan Native communities. And so you can just give us a call at Open Arms and sign up to have a home visiting person. It'll be either me, Siobhan, or Mary. And but if you are not in one of our focus communities or you don't want to commit to a year program, you can also come join us at our lactation lounges, which right now are virtual. So we have all of those links on the Facebook page, and I believe they're also on the website. So you can find us on those days. Monday is Siobhan, Tuesday is me, Wednesday is Mary, and Thursday is our brilliant partner, Cami Goldhammer, who has been like an idol and a mentor to me since I got into professional lactation. She's incredible. So yeah, feel free to drop in at any point. So those are open and free to everyone. And right now, while we're virtual, you can join in from anywhere across the US world, I guess. If you can get to us, you can join. And again, that's free. It's open to everyone. You're welcome to join in at any point. I love talking to people prenatally because it really helps, like all the stuff we talked about, getting kind of dispelling some of these myths. Sometimes just airing a fear. If we're holding a fear inside of us, sometimes it becomes this big, scary black thing. And if we speak it and we speak that truth in the moment, it takes away some of its power. And so it becomes lighter and it just drifts away. And at least it's out there. So then there's someone who can say, hey, I know you were worried about your milk not coming in. Let's check in on that. How's that going? So sometimes even just speaking these truths that we're having can be really helpful. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Again, feel free, please leave comments. We're going to try this again next week, hopefully more successfully. We're going to practice. And ideally, hopefully soon we'll get to have the whole team coming at you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.